Blessings, 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 everybody. This is Terrence Harris, and this episode's going to be about the people who just don't want to be employed, but they want to work, right? This is for the people who don't feel like they fit in well to a traditional work environment, a PWI, a predominantly white institution, right? This is for y'all, because even white people don't be feeling good at their own jobs. So imagine how a non white person feels, right? And so I'll be pulling some of my thought process from one of my earlier articles, why I chose the wilderness over the cage. It's titled The Math of Peace, right? And I felt like I wanted to share this in audio form because number one, it's in the paid subscriptions. So if you want to see it now, you can use one of your free previews to Substack and see it. Otherwise, you'd have to pay $8 a month, which goes towards us creating a consistent show for this actual Substack. Once we reach 10 people, I already have a show, I already have a guest prepared to improve and heighten the quality of this experience for everyone here. I don't know if y'all noticed, but I'm very peaceful today. I'll keep it a stack with y'all. I really am feeling good because I was having a great conversation with my lady Tony last night, and I was reflecting on how much evidence there is that the truth has set me free, that truth has allowed me to govern my life in a way that most people can't imagine, that the truth has allowed me to sustain and also create things that truly pour back into me and to the people around me. The ones who are around me who are truly caring for me because, you know, there's levels and layers to everything. So shouts out to the thousands of people who follow me. Shouts out to my friends and family who I grew up with. But I'm referring to the people who make the effort to be in my life today consistently. So without any further ado, without any more introductions, let's get into the meat of this conversation because I don't want to take up too much of your time. And I know I say this each time. The first episode was about 30 minutes. The last episode, I believe, almost got up to an hour, if not over an hour. So I want to really be more concise with these. So please leave comments. I'll also be doing a survey at the end of this just to see who watched all of it. And I can get a better idea of the people who are viewing these newsletters and versus the people who are finishing them. So if nothing else, just let me know how you feel about this episode, and I'll have a few other questions there as well. Mind you, this is the first time I'll ever be using the survey, so I don't know what I'll be able to ask you all. So without any, I'm not going to continue to hold y'all up. So part of this conversation that I want to have as it relates to the math of peace, that's what we're going to refer to this as, right? Is the anatomy of anticipation. So for some people, they might not know what anatomy means. So that just is the makeup of something, what something is made of, and its parts, how they work together, and etc. And clearly, anticipation is that feeling that you get when you're expecting something to happen or you're unaware of what's next, right? And I describe anticipation as a vibration in the body, right? This is a feeling of being truly alive because you are in the precipice of a shift. You are in the moment of a shift, right? And the reason I was writing about this was because I was watching a video of myself about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was called Are You Living or Are You Dumb? Right? And in my paid subscription section, you can check out this video, right? It is a private video from my YouTube. No one can see it except you all who subscribe and fund this initiative, just because I know if you're willing to pay to hear my work, that means you value it, but you also would like to preserve this experience because you're getting something meaningful out of it. I don't want to make too much of my personal life accessible because I truly believe that that waters it down. When you give all of your intimate moments to the internet and you don't preserve anything for yourself or the people who love you the most, right? So part of what I learned from this is, and when I say this, I mean the idea of the anatomy of anticipation. I learned that most of the time, I myself, but now that I've learned this, I'll share this with you that anxiety is normally attributed to stress, but alignment can, and I would, argue that anxiety is actually alignment. It's the body's way of acknowledging that you are finally turning in the direction that you were meant to go, right? If you don't feel that vibration in your daily life, you're probably not living, right? You're probably just participating in a sequence of events, right? Get up, brush your teeth, wash your face, get ready to go to work, pack your lunch, get to work, find your parking spot. You see what I'm saying? It's like a lot of these things are already set up for you, and you're just falling into place versus being godlike, right? Being like the creator, being in your true agency and your autonomy of being a human. A lot of us are just little bits and pieces to a larger machine that someone else has built. And then we get a little bit of the benefit that they receive from the thing that they're building that you work inside of. So I want you to ask yourself this question, right? And let me know in the comments, like, what is something that feels anxious in your life so we can talk about it. And I would like to talk to you about how it's alignment, not just anxiety, right? It doesn't mean it's not anxiety. It doesn't mean that you're not anxious. But I'd like to challenge you, and I'd like to give you some feedback on what that anxiety is so that we can see if we can identify it as alignment. So the next thing I want to talk about is the law of sovereignty, since I've mentioned it, right? Being godlike, being autonomous, having agency, right? This just means being sovereign. This means being able to create the direction of your life, live up to the direction of your life, and then also being able to benefit from it and share that benefit with others, right? Having ownership of your time, of your emotions, of your relationship with God. You know, this is what sovereignty looks like, where other people cannot govern you based on law or military industrial complex, right? A lot of us literally just follow the rules because we don't want to go to jail. But it's not because we truly believe in what rules we're following. And then we adopt the mentality of the people who are forcing this lifestyle on us until the point we're not truly thinking and feeling for ourselves anymore. So part of the reflection that I had in 2018, back when I initially wrote this, was that I'd rather have my time than have a lot of money, right? So let's break this down. Okay, so the way I have this framed is, would you rather have $30,000 a year, right? And still own 100% of your time? Or would you rather make $150,000 a year and not own any of your time? See, these are the things that I thought of when I was like 18, right? Where it's like, if I'm getting up to go to work and I have to prepare to go to work, that takes up a lot of time. Then I'm driving to work, then I'm coming home. And then when I come home, I got to decompress just to be able to feel my own body and hear my own thoughts again. And then after I decompress, I try to feed myself and then I'm resting just so I can go back to work. You really don't own your time, because even the time that you have to yourself, you have to use it to prepare to give your time away, right? When you're sleeping, you spend a large chunk of your life sleeping. You cannot move that around. You cannot not sleep, if that makes sense, if I use that grammatically correctly. You can't avoid sleep, I should say. You have to sleep. So this takes a large chunk of your day. If you're sleeping 8 hours a day and there's 24 hours in a day, a third of your life is spent sleeping. So that's one of the most important things, that if your rest is not something that you own, that you're only resting so that you can show up to work and perform for someone else, you don't even own your rest. And this was something that I always wanted to reclaim very early, where, well, I never really lost it, to be completely honest. Obviously, when I was going to public school, that was how my life was set up. And that was what they were attempting to ingrain in me. But I used to skip school. They couldn't keep me in school past ninth grade because I could just see how much it wasn't in alignment with the future I'd like to have. It wasn't in alignment with how I was presently spending my time. And if I look at the past, at people who commit their lives to school and careers, they also didn't get the result that they wanted in their life in majority. I actually believe that 30 or 40% of people today are actually in the job that their degree is related to. Most people don't even work a job related to the time that they spent going to school. So these are things that I always paid attention to. And so people usually try to just scare you into doing these things by saying you'll be poor or go to jail. And this was initially the point that I made, which was if someone has to convince you to do something with jail time or death, I'm pretty sure it's not in your best interest, it's in theirs. So that was the first analogy, was having 100% of my time for $30,000 versus having zero amounts of my time for more money, right? So I could live in a nicer house, have a nicer car, have a nicer cell phone, maybe carve out a few days of the month to myself, but the majority of my month is spent serving, however way I'm making my money. So I'd like to read this part, right? Traditional math, right? And this is definitions that I'm creating. The traditional math, success is measured by the height of your bag, right? How much of a bag you're getting. People will justify their success based on how much money they have, versus sovereign math is success is measured by the ratio of time to your peace. How much time do you get to spend in peace, right? A lot of rich people spend their time, they spend their money attempting to have peaceful times, right? Time to be with their children, time to be in nature, time to learn, time to create, right? So, meanwhile, people sell all of that time that they have to do the things that money provides. I feel like going to the beach is such a perfect example, where the beach is literally just sand and water. And it's already there. It's been there for thousands of years, if not millennia, right? But somehow they charge you for everything at the beach, from water to hotels to food. And it doesn't really, I mean, I've even seen beaches that cost to get on. When I first saw that, that one blew me away. I would have never imagined paying to be on the beach. But that's my point, that a lot of times people are charging you money just to have peace when you could be, creative about it, about how you find your peace. And also, this is not a abandon money kind of conversation. I feel like a lot of people drop out of conversations like this because they think we're advocating for discomfort, or we're advocating for not having any money. I'm saying $30,000, $40,000 right now is looked at as poverty, right? But if you looked at the quality of life that we live in America compared to how a king or a queen lived in the late 1800s, right? These are studies and facts that you can look up, that the fact we have running septic systems, lights, grocery stores, tables. I mean, even having a comforter on your bed was a luxury not even 200 years ago. So we just need to have a larger picture of how we appreciate and are grateful for our lives. I feel like being black does a really good job at this. When you're black and you've lived in America, you find a lot of pleasure in the small things. This is something that God, I truly believe that the universe has conspired for our greatest good by allowing us to recognize the fortune in having favor and given peace within, in a world that is so turbulent. Right. So this actually brings me into the next thing, which was the art of practicing yourself, right? A lot of people don't know themselves. They don't practice being themselves, right? But I do want to align the idea that I mentioned with having a job as an opportunity to practice being yourself. If your job requires you to be someone else, then it's deconstructing your relationship that you have with yourself. So ultimately, you have to reclaim that if you've lost it. But for the majority of people, if you've already been yourself at your job, then you can continue to show up that way and continue to practice that, right? This is the bridge between being an employee and being an architect. Most people view their jobs as a pause button on their real lives, And then when the clock turns off, like when they clock out of their job, then they start being themselves again, right? So being in a sovereign state of mind isn't just a tax bracket. It's not just an amount of money. Practicing being yourself means that every environment you enter is a space for your own evolution, right? If you're doing a customer service role, this is an opportunity for you to practice being a good communicator, maybe learning the psychology of people. If you're in management at some other company or somebody else's job, right? This gives you a chance to look at logistics, to understand the infrastructure of a business. And even if you're the CEO, even if you're the top dog, right? You get to practice strategy. So when you associate your work, even when you're doing work for other people, you can still be practicing becoming yourself. And that's why these spaces are very important for me because that's what I'm actively doing. The majority of my day and the majority of my time is spent just refining, developing, and evolving my capabilities and my sense of self. Um, I also think that a lot of times the time that we spend with other people is the greatest time that can be spent truly learning who we are, but also being challenged to become something greater. This is why I love my relationship because there's a lot of accountability being held around just who we claim and state that we are, the work that's being done to accomplish that, and then being grateful with the results that you receive, even if the results aren't exactly what you had intended them to be. Let me say that again. Sometimes we don't get what we want after doing the work, but then we find that there's something greater or something important that, or something just different that we needed to understand. And so, hey, baby. So the law of converging ideas. This was something that I was working on for a few days because I was finding that like two different convergent ideas in the same circle cannot build a single structure, right? Like two different sets of blueprints cannot build a similar building, right? If it's supposed to be a school, but it's supposed to be a hospital, these require two different blueprints, right? So alignment is the highest form of efficiency. If you're in a relationship or a business partnership or a community organization where the ideas that are converging are moving in opposite directions, it will eventually collapse. Let me tell you, I'm currently going through this where two of my bosses have totally different ideas of how something should work, and I'm stuck in the middle of it. And if it doesn't fix itself, I'm sure I'll lose my job before my bosses lose theirs. So it seems like right now my best choice is to figure out how to get them on the same page, right? And this isn't an indictment of people around me or people around you. It's just recognizing the physics of being in your purpose because I'm very much a spiritual scientist, right? I'm all about spirituality. I'm all about the unseen world, but I'm also very intentional about being purpose driven and seeing that this world reflects what my practices are spiritually. I made a promise to myself and the God that I'm serving, the universe that I'm serving, that the things that I'm showing up for with my creator are the things that show up in my life, right? There's science to the way I practice things. When I preach it, it manifests and it materializes. So I'm not big on like I'm not an advocate and I don't knock anybody who operates, in a hereafter or like, you know, things that are not aligned with how you practice your spirituality not showing up in your life. But I'm here to, let you know that the way I practice my spirituality aligns with my science and my lived experience. It aligns perfectly. I can't stress that any more than I have because you got to really be living it to know what I mean, especially if you've lived in a spiritual practice that doesn't align with the quality of your life. So you have such a great God, but you have such a bad life, or you have such a great life, but no relationship to something greater than yourself. I'm not too experienced in that, but I do know that in the time that I was experiencing that, it was very, very tumultuous. It was very, very bad for me and it was bad for the people around me. So I hope that that's not what you're going through, genuinely. So to get where we're going, right, to build Newports and News, to build Still Growing, we got to be shameless about this alignment. We got to surround ourselves with people whose math matches our own. So with all of that being said, right, I'm going to start wrapping this up by just saying that, this piece that I wrote is literally like where I'm at right now, right? So when I wrote this, it was like February. So that's about 2 months ago now. And I wrote it about something that I was thinking about and like passionately expressing back in 2018. But like I'm living the results of this practice currently. It took like 7 or 8 years for this to fully materialize in my life where I have peace that money cannot buy. I have favor and fortune that money would could buy, but I mean it'd be a lot. The type of buildings I can get into, the type of spaces I can use, the type of professionals that I'm surrounded in. I mean, I've seen the invoices that they charge other people. Definitely don't send them to me. So, if nothing else, I'll leave you here with this, right? If you're hearing this on YouTube, make sure you pull up on the Substack. I'm going to be dropping exclusive stuff there. We're going to have a new show once we hit 10 subscribers. We're currently at 7. So if 3 of y'all got $8 a month, this is 26 cents a day. You feel me? Which I know we have. And I'll be doing a direct call to action on this soon. But for the people who are really tapped in, I encourage y'all to subscribe. It also includes advertisement space inside of this platform. So that means I will be sending out whatever you would desire me to send out to over 1,400 people. You'll have access to the chat where you can speak to me directly about what you'd like to see more of. And then also, I'm going to shout you out in these episodes, right? So without any further ado, let's shout out the people that are supporting the Substack before I let y'all go, right? Simple and plain. So one person, or let's just go with, the ones that I can remember right off the top of my head, right? So we've got Miss Yasmin, of course, from Bar Tiki. We've got Miss Michelle from Canvas. We have Miss EJ, which is Miss Sharon's mom from Playing People. We have A Blazer, who is literally one of my first subscribers that I do not know. Isn't that's crazy, right? Like random people on the internet found my work. So if you hear this, A Blazer, let's connect. Let me learn more about what you got going on. Shouts out to my man Dom, One Random Nine, which is an old colleague of mine from my initial entrepreneurial venture, my solopreneurship of Newports and News. Shouts out to my mom. She just tapped in as well. So I hope that you're receiving a lot of insight about who I am and who I've become in my journey here in Philadelphia. And then shouts out to Kiera. We actually just had a really good meeting last week, and we're going to be working on a wellness event for Wellness Sundays on Lancaster Ave. Each Sunday is Wellness Sundays, but the curation we're doing will be once a month. And, I don't want to give out too much details, but she's definitely in her bag with this one. And we have to give thanks to Bari Boutique and Canvas. So without any further ado, I'll see y'all next time. Bless up.